Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files right here in the J Free 906 podcast channel. Mike Owen here with us tonight. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well.
We're going to be talking about the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, episode number 5. Yes, season 6, episode number 5, pushing boundaries for tonight. And we thank you all for joining us here with us tonight. Hey, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like the content of the show we do for you here tonight, consider giving us a like, give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that very, very much. Oh my gosh, another great episode, was it not? What do you think?
Yep, they keep packing a lot of stuff into 42 minutes.
42 minutes, I know.
It's
And
a lot.
it is. And I was on the out with the insiders earlier today, talking. I try to get out there every day, but a little bit today, and we were talking about so much to put into this. They get through it in 42 minutes. I can't do that.
Nope.
No way that I could get through all this in 42 minutes. Just too much to talk about. But it was a great episode. And one of the things that I really am finding, I think they are finding, is that this bubble dome, whatever you want to call it, is really, truly there. There's just too many different types of electronic equipment that are picking this thing up and finding anomalous data. So we'll get through that tonight as we go along here. So we may see, well, I'll leave that out. I'm not going to say anything yet. I almost gave away something. I'll just save that for later. All right. So throughout the episode tonight, pushing boundaries, we're going to talk about some of the more interesting aspects of this. And again, it's one of those things where we have to speculate. We really have to throw out the speculation here quite a bit because we don't have all the answers that they get. And unfortunately, and as most of all of you know already, there is so much of this film that is done from the show that we do not get to see. And that's really unfortunate for us. I know that people get tired of me talking about the Insider program. I love the Insider program, and I think it's a great deal. And you get so much more through it. You really do. And I know that there's going to be something going on tonight at 9 o'clock. I think they're talking about the cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
what's the name of that cruise? Do you know what that was? I forget.
Nope.
Somebody in the chat help me out with that. But they're going to be doing that at 9, so we have to try to finish up by then. And get on with it a little bit here. I know I was going to bring up the thing and have a look at it on the website, but
Skinwalker Uncharted.
Skinwalker Uncharted. Yes, that's it. That's the one. And they're going to be talking about that tonight at 9 o'clock. So, and then tomorrow night they're going to do the review or the Q&A for the episode. One of the things that I wanted to mention also is that thank you, Michelle. And one of the things that I was going to mention also is the fact that they're doing the show with Maddie Blake after the episode kind of steals my thunder a little bit, but it's okay simply because there is more information, a little bit more detail given in there than we get from the show. So they add a little bit more to that. If you're really paying attention to that, you get to see a little bit more information. So or hear a little bit more information. April says, hello from the great sun ball state of Arizona, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh,
How's the humidity though?
yeah.
Is
What's
it
the
a dry
humidity?
heat? Isn't that's better, right? I don't know.
That's
We have
still
humidity in
hot,
Iowa,
though,
so
dude. I mean,
the corn makes its own humidity here. So
yeah. Wow. Yeah, for sure. Because I know it was 95 around here last week and it was so bad. And then today it was 85. It's still hot. No one replaces your show. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Merrily. Let's see here. All right, so let's get started with this, shall we? Because we got to get through it all. So, Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, episode number 5, pushing boundaries. And this time we don't see anything going on at the Mesa drill site. Supposedly, when we last saw them, they were getting ready to do the casing around the first borehole that they put up through the Mesa. They were getting ready to do the lining of what it is. I don't know what that lining. Do you have any idea what that makeup of that stuff is? Or
It's like a gel that is similar to concrete. And oh, look who's here,
hey, Eric, thank you,
Mr. Eric Bard himself.
Mr. Bard himself. Yes, dude.
But
Um,
but yeah, it's like concrete. I mean,
it's like a
they
concrete
can
lining.
pump it in through the drill rod, kind of like they do the water, and then
Ah, yeah, the way it
pull
was
that.
spinning out. Yeah.
I'm sure they have a different head for it, and pull that back bore through, and it just kind of squeegees the gel onto the walls of the tunnel that they dug, and hopefully solidifies and keeps that open so they can use it for
Yeah.
testing.
Yep, started to get the electronics into it. I know that I had mentioned, and I brought this up. We did a little show the other day with Vanessa Lucido, and she works. She is the CEO of Rock Equipment Company. And during that episode, we were talking about Curse of Oak Island, of course. And bear with me just a moment, folks, while I tell this little story. It does relate to Skinwalker Ranch, but in part of that, toward the end of the show, I was asking her. I said, I would love. These guys are working so very hard to get into this Mesa. And then once they get their electronics in there and they start reading what this anomaly is that Jan Franke had seen with his GPR, if they need to get access to it, it'd be really cool if Rock Equipment Company could come out there and put a caisson down into the Mesa and get access. You could put a 10-foot caisson down there. It was really interesting to hear her answer. There's a little short video that I put out about that, but boy, wouldn't that be cool to see a casing go down. Now, this is after they figured out what's there and they want to, get access. This would be a nice way to try to do it without blowing things up, right? So, hey, look who's here. Mr. Kelsey. How are you, sir?
Ta-da!
Welcome. How you
Jeff,
doing, sir?
Mike, good to see you both.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
I'm glad you're here because I have a couple of questions for you as we go along here tonight. So, be interesting. Actually, there were questions from one of our Discord folks last night. Maya was in there with us talking about as we watched the episode last night. So she brought up a couple of really good questions. So we'll get to that as we go
I'll do
along.
my best.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. So getting back to it, we're going to start off this one in particular. They brought out these two guys here, Dominic and Dylan from Dylan from US Kites came out to the ranch. And this was one of those episodes where we didn't see Mr. Kelsey at all. I was a little saddened by that, but I know, right? The first one of the season. So, but yeah. So they brought out these gentlemen from US Kites, and this was really interesting. They were talking about this Helikite, not a helicite, I guess a Helikite, because it's a balloon filled with helium, and then it has a kite attached to it to help keep it stable. I would imagine something like that to keep it stable. Or the interesting thing, and so many people have brought this up in comments to my podcast, or I've seen it brought up in Skinwalker Insiders. About being able to have something up there, a platform by which they could get sensors and keep them up in the air for a long period of time. And as we know that with rockets, you get a couple of seconds. With drones, you get, I don't know, what's the flight time of a drone generally, Pete? I mean, is it a few minutes? I mean, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
20 minutes is safe, sometimes more.
Yeah. So you're limited on time with that and payload of equipment that you can put on it. So this was interesting to see this particular Helikite be able to carry a nice size payload and get it up there. You can see the payload here. They got it on this foam board that Travis is working on here with Jim, and all this electronics that they're putting on. They got cameras on there, and the transmitter for the 1.2 gigahertz signal going out. GPS, of course. I don't know what all they had on this besides all of that, but there was quite a bit of. Were you privy to that at all? I know you weren't here that particular time, so I don't know, Pete, if you recognize.
No, we watched this together for the first time.
Very good. But it's nice to be able to get that payload. And speaking of which, there is the transmitter. At least that's what they showed us, was the transmitter for the 1.2 gigahertz signal. And what I loved was that they showed the Kraken. As soon as, and people, you wonder about this, the Kraken, it gives you a direction of the signal back to the Kraken receiver or the antenna as to where the signal is coming from. As soon as they kicked it on, bam, there it is. And it's pointing right at the site of their putting this electronics on the Helikite. Yeah. Yeah. Larry Jones said, well, park a Helikite above the triangle area for a time. Yeah, a long time would be nice. So they could get that up there and keep it up for a long period of time. But anyway, that proves right there how well the Kraken does its work. So that's really cool to see. And then, of course, Eric in the command center saw the signal right away as well. And I think this one was the unit out at in the field that Travis was using, the 1.2 showing up there. So the idea behind this for last night was to go and get this Helikite just inside the boundary. I guess this would have been the eastern boundary of the dome zone. Get it just inside that boundary area. And then Jim Royston was going to fly a LiDAR drone over the area. And then they were going to fire off a couple of rockets in that general direction, kind of tilted at a 45-degree angle, shooting them at this, as well, the boundary area, to see what they could stimulate, see what kind of data they get from all of this. So really neat interest, a set of experiments to play all at one time to see what happens here. And as soon as they turned on, now this is what was neat about this, but as soon as they turned on the GPS on the Helikite, it immediately popped up and it showed it being underground. Again, this is one of those things. Now, I know Mike, you and Pete both are much more learned on this sort of thing, but that would be considered to be a time delay in the GPS, more or less, or would that be a time delay? You think that would
could be.
Could be.
I mean, that would be one thing that would make it think it was at a lower elevation than it really is. At least that's the only thing I could think of. There could be other interference that might cause the electronics to do something weird, but it wouldn't do it that in a straight line like that. I mean, to me, that is more like a time delay of some kind. It was interesting that it was all in a straight line, but yet still at an angle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which direction that angle kind of trailed off towards, but anyway.
Yeah, I see. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
Do I see Eric? Yeah.
Yes,
Eric.
you do.
Yeah.
Eric, put some clothes on and join us.
Yes.
Come on, man.
Well, he was in Discord earlier with the insiders for a while, and oh, wait, what do you say here? We have seen drone platforms perceive themselves as being significantly underground.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Not to mention helicopters.
Yes.
Pick your GPS receiver.
Right,
Underground, miles away. Yeah, this is definitely a thing, a persistent thing.
That's the key point. A persistent thing. It happens so often. And in this particular case, it was down about 800 feet. going down all the GPS marks about 800 feet down. And it would be interesting to see if we could figure out. To me, it would be. I don't know if most people would find this interesting, but it would be to me to find out what's the time delay that we're running into to show it that far down. If it's
Not very
800 feet
much.
up, 800 feet on,
Milliseconds.
yeah, milliseconds
Yeah.
probably, but I'd
Yeah.
still be interested in that, I think. To do that.
Yeah, you factor in the speed of light, and
Yeah.
it would be impossible. It'd be such a short
Yeah.
measurement of time.
Yeah. Probably not worth bothering with all that, but you
Oh,
just
no,
see.
no, 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 no. That's
Ah.
not what I'm saying. No, not at all. Not at all. I would love to know that, to have that number. So would Eric, so would all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's
then
what
if
I
we
was.
had that number, we could tie that into some previous stuff and say, does that correspond,
Mhm.
right, to the offset? Anomalous, underground, whatever miles away, readings we keep getting.
Michelle Stratton saying, with sensors showing the descent below ground, would that correlate to a person standing there and feeling as if the ground was pulling them down into it? Asking for a friend. Okay. I don't know. What do you think?
Same thing happened to the Jay Stratton data when they used him as the guinea pig and paraded him around the ranch. They got out there a ways, and his data started going underground.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's Eric popping in. 800-ish feet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like I said, not very much.
I don't even know how to read that. 3 by 10 to
3
the
times 10 to the 8th meters per
8th
second.
power
But
yeah.
keep in mind it shouldn't happen. The time shouldn't be delayed at all.
No.
It doesn't matter how much. It shouldn't be delaying time.
Right.
Be
Yeah,
constant.
it should not be delaying time at all. So if it's, remember when they first, and we'll get to the whole launching of the kayaks here in a little bit, but when they did that last year and it was 5,000 feet underground. I mean, now that's what I was wondering. That's where I was putting that together with, the distance underground by the amount of delay. It's just crazy.
I keep not to make light of this, but I literally had this dream of what I'm about to say, that it's almost like from the movie Contact, right? There's, I disappear for a second and then I come back and I'm 20 years younger.
Mhm.
I'd sign up for that. I'm
Yes.
ready.
As long as I didn't lose all my memories from that 20 years,
Right,
so I could
right.
go back and, be
Right.
younger, but still be, have that experiences
Right.
of what not to do. Not that I, never mind. All right. So one of the things in this, while I was over in Discord and I was listening to Professor Bard and, talking to everybody about certain things that happened on the episode last night. I think it was B Jones came on and she was asking about, and I really thought, okay, this is one of those times where I'm not going to show, and it's not a bad befuddled face of Eric Bard, but she mentioned about him making a facial expression about something, and she was wondering if I was going to have it tonight. And I thought it was this one. And I was thinking it was this. Now, this happened when Eric saw this. And what he had said during that time was, oh, oh, oh. And again, because this is so significant, that it really surprised him that it happened. Well, I guess I don't know about it is B. Thank you, B. Whether or not it surprised Eric or not, I don't know. But again, and something that Eric said that always gets me too is talking about. This is what you said when you were with Maddie Blake. When I see patterns, I get very interested. This again is one of those patterns. It's a repeatable thing that keeps happening. And it was outside of the bubble.
Yeah.
Right.
Smoking gun.
Yeah. So it wasn't even inside the bubble when this happened. So here we're going to show this is the GPS data of it as it was making its way. Thomas was pulling it towards, actually, he was, it was pulling, it almost looked like it was pulling him because it was out in front of the side by side as they were going, as he was taking it into, because of the way the wind was blowing. But he was taking it into the bubble area just inside. And Eric had him stop at that point, just inside this barrier that you see right here. I say barrier, boundary.
Yeah.
And there it is there. You see it out in front, making its way in there. And then Jim goes to launch his drone. And it's a payload, direct data error, check satellite signals, weak signal, aircraft antenna. I mean, and what was interesting about this too was that when they were in the command center later on, they were looking at this. It dropped every single, right there. You see 19. This little right thing right here is looking at how many satellites that it is currently. I guess, and maybe you could explain this a little bit better, Pete. 19 satellites that it is actually using right now or can talk
Yep.
to,
Yep.
and it can't pick up any of them.
Well, that's gosh, this is a head scratcher for me too, because I own the same equipment. I know this UI, user interface, we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
really, really well. And what I have not seen before is this combination of errors.
Oh,
So payload direction error, that the payload is the LiDAR unit. RTK signal weak. Okay, I've seen that before, and it's a safety thing. It won't let you take off unless you've got good locational data, so you can hit return to home, and it will come home and land, and you don't have to do anything.
right.
Aircraft antenna satellite signal searching error, and that's where it gets weird, right? It's so any one of these by itself, I could probably go, I have a feeling, I have some opinions on how to explain that rationally, right? But all three of these together and seeing, 19 satellites is a bit odd. And Eric's right. Normally when we're out there, we're at a count of 30
Wow.
satellites. So 19 is actually a bit low. But technically, trigonometry, you only need 3.
Right.
Right? So 19 is more than enough to get good signal. So kind of weird.
Yeah. And again, that's like you said, a head scratcher as to why did it lose all of them. And I think when they were in the command center, it was actually he at one point had 21 on the screen. But we'll get to that picture a little later. But that's just, again,
Welcome to Skinwalker Ranch.
welcome to
right.
Skinwalker Ranch. It's just nuts that sort of thing happens, right there so often. And people have said, well, how come it doesn't happen to the production stuff? Yes, it does. You just don't.
You can pick, like I see something in the chat, what about GPS on a phone? It's affected phones before. Pick your GPS sensor, whether it's what's in your phone or, survey grade GNSS RTK receivers. It crosses, or in the helicopter, I mean, FAA grade GPS.
Yeah.
I mean, it monkeys with all of it. And talk about a pattern and talk about interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't know. I mean, it makes you start to get to the point where you just can't find all of your electronics reliable at any given point on the ranch at all. And then again, this was some of this data was happening outside of the bubble area. So I don't know. I don't know how to wrap my brain around that, because you're thinking that anytime you cross over that line, that boundary into the bubble, that's when you're going to have all this stuff happening. Like there was something, a dampening field inside of the bubble area there. But um, I'm curious how often just driving down a vehicle down the road through the wall of the bubble causes problems. Seems it waits for toys and cameras to be brought out. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Interesting thought, right? GPS in most modern vehicles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't, you know what? I won't forget that. That's a simple but
Hmm.
very smart way to, hey, can we add another device? The GPS in the vehicles. It's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've attached GPS units to vehicles
Mhm.
before. That happened with
Mhm.
Jay Stratton, and it showed it, underground quite a bit. Phones have had issues in the bubble.
Mhm.
Caleb's phone had issues with in Homestead 2, which is inside. So yeah,
Caleb's had multiple phones have problems.
yes, I remember early on he did. It was going crazy. His phone was.
He's pretty hard on phones.
Apparently so. Now this next picture here, this was as soon as the Helikite went into the boundary, across the boundary, went inside. Um, this happened. They were transmitting. Remember, the Helikite on its payload platform had a transmitter on it, 1.2 gigahertz transmitter on it. As soon as it went inside the boundary, or across the boundary, they got this, another 1.2, or right there about 1.2 gigahertz signal coming back to them. I we've talked about, over the course of the past couple of episodes of this podcast, we have talked about the whole thing is something trying to communicate with you. What's going on there? We just don't simply know um, if that's what's happening here, but um, it's not a coincidence. Eric says, I use AM radio to tune to a non station, listening for changes in the static as I pass through this region. Ah, very interesting.
That's why he's the boss.
Absolutely. Yep. Because he thinks of these kinds of things. There you go.
This
Uh,
was, I think this was the shot too that in the after show, Maddie Blake brought up mimicry,
yes.
and that it does seem like it's picking up on what's being broadcast and then replicating that somehow.
Mhm.
Because the 1.2 is new this year, so
Right.
to suddenly see that start popping up all on its own
Exactly.
seems very interesting.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. For that to happen, when they weren't using it before, they weren't picking it up before. And then as soon as they
Yep.
start to use it, it starts getting broadcast um, elsewhere. That
And
is,
and like Eric said, what better way to get someone's attention than to mimic what they're doing?
yep, 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 exactly. I, it's not a coincidence. And try to figure out what's happening, or who's doing it, or who's sending it back, or is it a reflection of your signal coming back at you because something decided to just bounce it right back? I it's one of those things that I'm sure Eric and Pete and Travis and everybody out there are still trying to get answers to that very question. But certainly very interesting. So then Travis goes out and he fires. He had the two rockets that he was going to shoot off at this at the bubble, towards the bubble area, the boundary. And the first one, and I think these, I don't know what degree, it looks like they're at about a 45-degree angle, shooting them, rather than being straight up, kind of shooting them at an angle, because they are outside of the boundary, the bubble area, shooting them into or towards the bubble. The first one fires off, and you hear the first thing you hear from that is they go to Eric in the command center right away, going, "Well, that's not off target," or something like that. I didn't catch his actual words, but he's like, "That's not where it was supposed to go." You hear Travis say it. You hear Thomas say it. And then I caught in the Matty Blake and the Behind the Gates show that Travis had said something in there that I don't know that they said it during the episode, but he talked about how it went off to the north. Okay, so here's the bubble, and it went off to the north. But then in that Behind the Gates, he had said it kind of curved and went around the anomaly. That would have been something to see. But he said, because I mean, generally, oh, thank you, Craig. Appreciate that very much. From Uperland. So when he shot it off, it went to the north, but he said it kind of went around it.
We were just saying too how in this season they've actually gotten rockets to go straight.
Yeah,
they were going great, and then this episode, 2 in a row go the wrong way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete, go ahead.
Just I can't remember whether I've said this before, but it is amazing that you, Jeff, and many others are paying attention to that degree. I think that's great for a lot of reasons. One, we're watching, right? It's we're paying attention. We're not just enjoying the show. We are paying attention. And there's a part of that that's, well, it's great for a lot of reasons, but keeping production on the straight and narrow, that's probably my favorite part of it.
Yeah. I agree with that too, because we know, and I've brought this up before many times, is that, yeah, Jim Kelgard said it perfectly. We're insiders. It's kind of what we do. Yeah. But yeah, it's because, that like Mike and I and Jim and most everybody that's here tonight, we've been trained well. Yes, B. Jones,
Yeah.
we have, by Pete and Eric. Yes, we have been trained very well. But we are so interested in what's happening. And somebody, I think, Pete, I think it was you in the Insider program, you put out a link to that article that was just written, and I can't think of for the life of me, I can't I remember the name of it. But
The Vulture, New York Magazine.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was great. That was a great article. I wish I had the link for it, folks. I would put it up for you to read it. It was from the Vulture, you said? Yeah, I remember seeing Vulture on there.
Yeah, it's a offshoot sort of magazine from New York Magazine, and the coverage is significant. It's like 9-point-something million readers per month. So pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so for us to be paying attention the way we do, it's because I'm so interested in what's going on out there. And I believe, regardless of and I think this show does I think Prometheus does a better job of it on this show than maybe a few others that they work on. And it may be because of the interaction with Brandon and you guys involved in here, but they stick to the narrative pretty darn well. And they don't usually go off on too many tangents on their own to lead us in a different direction. I think they're very good about that, at least on this particular show, and I applaud them for that. But and that's why I ask some of the questions that I do when Mike and I see something that may not have been explained quite as well as it could have. It's on our Facebook page. Okay, thank you, Linda. The article. So yeah, there's a link for our Facebook page down below. Talk about the Curse of Oak Island and also Skinwalker Ranch. You can check it out, and that link is in there. It is a very good article. But they have Prometheus has the ability to change the narrative into whatever they want. In this particular case, they stick pretty close to it, but we're very, very interested in it. And sometimes I have to question what we see, like we did a couple of weeks ago. Mike and I were both questioning something on there that was I don't remember the actual circumstances, but reach out to Eric or yourself and try to ask that question. What was really the case here? Was this what we saw it was, or because I know you guys are doing your very best to figure this thing out. So anyway,
And it's, I'm watching Michelle in the chat. This is absolutely unique, unprecedented, never happened in the history of mass media, much less television. This is new ground. Completely, where it's almost like an interactive experience. And what better subject matter for that than the ranch?
I know.
There's something there's something elegant about that I don't think, I don't know. It's welcome to the noise in my head, but it just it
No, I
it's
agree.
it's not lost on me, right? It's new and it's different, and wow, all these TV people are having gone, okay, wow, what do we do now?
There's so much happening. I'm sure, when they go back to edit this together and put together an episode for 42 minutes, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to pick and choose what you're going to put on the episode because of all the stuff that's there. Yeah, I just, I think that would be a hard one in this particular case.
Well, and
Hey, you
considering
guys,
we only see that 1% of what they've
Yes,
actually filmed,
exactly.
Right.
they're
Yeah.
picking
Right.
1%
right.
out of the 100% that they filmed.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't laugh at me, but because we've got multiple podcasts, my dinner's here and I'm starving, so I'm going to eat and then
Okay.
I'll come back.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Mwah.
we'll see you in a bit. All right. So what they did next was they fired off the second rocket that they had available, and again, this time instead of and Travis had said, "I'm going to point this one so that it comes down right at the triangle." So he gets it all set up. He launches the rocket, and this time instead of going around to the north and bending around, I don't know. He didn't mention that it bent around this time, but it went to the south. This one did. And you see the look on Jim Royson's face after this happens, and he's just like, he has no answers for that. It's almost as if this, and you've heard Travis say, I know we're getting into sci-fi and stuff, talking about a force field of some sort, but it's a deflection field of something, deflecting these things to keep the instruments that may be on board away from going inside of the bubble area.
It does seem to want that airspace left alone.
Yeah. 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 Right off the launch. I mean, look at this. You can see it on this one. It just takes off immediately and goes to the south.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah. Aiming through the bubble, not an option, apparently. Coach, that's about right. And unfortunately, this one, I did grab this picture. You can barely see it there, but it's lawn darting. So that one there had a hard landing. I don't know how many you guys go through on the ranch, how many rockets, but I can imagine quite a few. But that one lawn darted it. But again, it went off to the south. It did not go through the center of the bubble area like he wanted it to, for whatever reason. He got deflected away. So jumping over to the command center. All right, this is where Jim Royston was up, and he was talking about his the data that he had on his handheld unit, looking at on the software that he had there to fly the drone in the first place. And here you see the 21, and he kind of was showing where the line of the boundary of the bubble area is and how it was affecting it on the pad. He's well outside of this area. He's here on the pad. You can see the little arrow showing the direction. But he's outside of the boundary, and he has lost connection with 21 satellites for GPS positioning. Just doesn't make much sense. And then we get Eric talking about this. This was, in my opinion, very, very significant. It's why I chose this picture here for the thumbnail for tonight. When I first saw this, I was thinking, oh my gosh, they got a line of 4, maybe 5 UAPs following each other. But listening to them talk about this after, in the behind the gates, Eric and Travis both kept saying a UAP, as if there was only one, and we're seeing this trail, a high-speed camera. So we're assuming it was some sort of well, I'm at a loss for a word. That trail, or like the I'm at a loss for a word.
Yeah, I don't. I thought that too when it initially it looked like there were 4 or more, but if you look closer, it's
There's another one right
almost like
there.
it's ghosting,
Mhm.
kind of like in LiDAR, where it's just moving so fast that the camera's picking up the same object multiple times. But this was a high-speed camera, I believe,
Mhm.
Eric said. So
Mhm.
trying to explain why there's 4 of them. I mean, I know that some cameras have compression software, and it's sometimes using it's copying frames, but he was going frame by frame, so it's a little not exactly sure how that happens. I'd need somebody that knows more about video analysis to explain why it looks like there's 4, but there's kind of also maybe there really is 4. I don't know. It looked to me, it looked like it was just streaking past so fast that it was just
Yeah.
showing up more than once.
So fast.
I don't know.
Yeah. So you see him there. I do have a clip of this because this, and it looks like we're looking to the east here. I would say it is definitely to the east because you see the mesa on the left hand side. So
You,
you would
you can
be,
see the crop circle too
yeah,
from the
yeah, exactly
irrigation
right
pivot.
here. Yep. And so my thought when I saw this, now Travis explained it a little bit differently when he was in behind the gates, but my thought initially was that did this possibly come out of the East Field exit point or entry point or something? And then because you kind of see it go up and then make a turn, but he explained that it was came from far off and flew by so fast. And we'll get to some of those details. I do have a video on this. I'm going to play that real quick. That's coming up right here. And you see it going through zoop, right there, fly by, and then a couple slowdowns that Eric was showing everybody. There it is again. A couple more here. Now, yeah, there it is. There, looking at it. Now Thomas asked him to go frame by frame. Now, see how it went up and then around? That's really, really interesting.
Turned. Yeah.
Yeah, it turned.
Intelligently controlled.
Yes, thank you. And there's where it went behind that
the
one
wire.
line. So it wasn't
Yep.
a bug. Right
Yeah, it was
there.
definitely further away from the camera.
Yeah. So something that was said about this particular UAP was they were trying to calculate. Travis was calculating this thing, and he said in there, and I don't know. I'm assuming how he came up with this data, but he talked about it. He said 5 miles in 3/100ths of a second. And he said something to the effect of 16,000 miles per hour.
Nope. It's not possible. Makes no sense.
It should not be possible. Yeah, that's moving. Yeah, absolutely crazy. 16,000. He said 5 miles, roughly 5 miles from the calc. And again, they're going by the visual on this. But moving at those kinds of speeds with that high speed camera, the naked eye would not have seen this. I don't think it went just simply by went by too fast. I don't think that that you would have been able to see it with the naked eye. 16,000 and silent. Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Without knowing the distance from the object, it's very difficult to determine speed. Right. That's very true.
Yep.
Yep. So doing the best that he could with that, coming up with that particular rate of speed. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But it is very, very interesting to catch something like this. And it's almost one of those things where you're kind of like, oh, another UAP, right? How many times
Yeah,
have we said
right.
that?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
just another
Of
UAP.
course, a UAP showed up. It's
Yeah,
Skinwalker
of
Ranch.
course
What
it
did
did.
you expect to happen?
Yes, exactly.
Normal. It
Yeah, it
does
was
make
like
you wonder how often stuff like that is flying by. I mean, they had a camera in the right position, facing the right way, at the right speed to catch something that fast,
yep,
because that was a high-speed camera. What if they didn't have that? You never would have known that had gone by.
right.
How many other things are out there going by that you can't see with the naked eye?
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
seems
Yeah.
like it happens a lot more than we realize.
I think it happens a lot more than we ever catch.
Yeah.
And here's what, and this goes back to 2022, I think it was the summer of 2020, August. And I brought this up on the Insider about a year later. Well, I had brought it up at the time, but I had actually seen what I thought was a UAP that flew by on one of the screens that we were looking at. Actually, it was during filming. So we had the one screen on the Insider program to look at, and I saw a quick little flash. And I went back and reviewed it, and it turns out it was, in my opinion, a UAP, a silver orb ball that flew by from right to left across the screen. And people ask, how did you even see that? And I don't know. I just simply saw a flash. But when you slowed it down, it was a spherical orb of some sort that made its way. There was like three frames of it as it moved across, 3 to 4 frames of it as it moves across from right to left across the screen. And everybody was looking at it, trying to determine. I remember at the time was talking to Eric about it. He said, when did you see that? And I think it was like August 7th of that year of 2022. During filming. So they may have been doing something that, caused it. But it taught me to kind of look for those things a little bit. And I have seen driving down the road, and I have seen a quick little flash of light. Was that another one that happened to go by while I was driving? Don't know. Did not catch it on camera, so I have no idea. But like you said, Mike, how many times is something like this happening that we have no idea?
Yeah. Humans' perception is a very, very, very narrow window.
Mhm.
Visually, audio, tastes, touch, all that. It's a very, very small subset of everything out there that's available.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we shouldn't assume that everything must be in the range that we can perceive it.
Nope. We're so
Why
limited.
why would it be?
Yeah. We're so limited in what we can see, what we can hear. All of our little ranges are so small. There's so much going on that I think that we simply can't see or perceive. So, oh, and then one other thing that Travis had said, and this again was in the behind the gates. He said there was 3 cameras. He said out of 3 cameras, 2 of them saw that UAP, and it was not a bug.
Yep.
He said 2 of them saw we only saw the one camera angle or one camera shot that Eric had displayed in the command center, but he said there was 2 that actually saw it. So it was definitely a UAP in all intents and purposes. All right, excuse me. As the show goes along, now they're going to start to repeat another experiment that they had done. They brought out Ben Woodruff, a biologist. He's the gentleman that has been working with the jawbone of the wolf type animal that they found in the Dry Gulch Creek. Last season they found that, and he went and did this testing on it, and they can't give an actual determination. We saw this on the data that was received or came in last week. Um, what was it? 11% said that it was a gray wolf, a Eurasian gray wolf, or the like, and then 89% of it unknown. What does that tell you? I don't know.
That is crazy.
It is crazy.
Unknown DNA.
Unknown DNA. Yes, exactly.
When
So
we have a database of everything.
And they got a database of everything. Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty crazy. So, all right. Pete's back. Hey, Pete. So they bring out Ben and the team, and they're going to repeat this experiment where they go into the Dry Gulch Creek, dragging along or pulling along these kayaks loaded with instrumentation to record and see what they have. Now they're putting in outside of the boundary, down in the southwestern area of Dry. I always have trouble saying it. Dry Gulch Creek. Here's a picture of it right here, and they're putting in, or they're working their way from outside of the boundary and working their way along the creek, which will take them across that boundary area and into it, Dry Gulch. Yep. So you see it there, and how it runs quite a bit of it meanders its way through the anomalous area there. And this is interesting. They had this tri-field meter out here, and for once, I'm going to do a prop because I happen to have my own tri-field meter, and I've had it sitting here on my desk. Yes, I know, right? I'm learning from you, Mike. Have your prop. I've had this thing sitting on I use this in a lot of different areas during some different investigations that I've done. But as they said on the show, this particular one on the kayak was at 0.0. I have never seen mine at 0.0. Never. Now it's set on the weighted mag right here. You can see. Well, and right now it's reading a 0.2. It's been fluctuating between 0.2 and 0.4, sitting here on my desk this entire time. Magnetic field, and it's milligauss. It's picking up in milligauss. So for this one to be at 0.0, it makes no sense. And it was that way through the entire time they were in the creek. And he said when they were out of the creek, it worked just fine. Mike, you said something earlier about maybe the creek.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is that creek is deeper than, or it's down on the ground deeper than, it looks like. You can look at Google Earth or Google Maps, and you can't tell that it's got about a 10-foot side to the creek, and so that it's down quite a ways. But even that, like Travis said, it wouldn't be perfectly at zero for an extended period of time. It might hit zero occasionally,
right?
But it wouldn't sit there. That seems very, very strange.
Yeah, very strange. So why was it not picking up? What was it because there was no magnetic field there to pick up, or was it because it was being blocked? Oh, we don't know the answer to that. Absolutely do not know. But it is very anomalous that it would be at 0.0 for the entire time. So they had a couple of other things out there that they were looking at as well. They had the GPS on board, as well. They were looking at quite a few different things there. And again, they got that weird indication that they were underground again. The GPS was showing underground as soon as they got in the water, just like before. Maybe not 5,000 feet like it was before. I think Eric said tens of feet that it was showing. And then Jim Royston was having trouble with his LiDAR drone. He was trying to launch this thing, and this was where my question for you, Pete, came up. Excuse me. Really getting sorry about that, folks. I apologize. Jim Jim launched, the thing went about, he was on the roof of the truck or the vehicle there. It went up about 20 feet and just sat there. And it was saying that it had an aircraft approaching so that it could not continue the flight pattern that had been pre programmed for it to do. And one of the questions, and then Maya brought this up in Discord last night as we were talking or watching the show. What does it use to detect? Oh, thank you. What does it use to, how does it know that there's an aircraft approaching? What does it use? How does it find that information?
It essentially taps into the ADS-B network. And I think I mentioned earlier, I have the same drone, same gear, same remote control.
Yep.
And yeah, it will actually, it continuously tells you, hey, there's an aircraft to your northwest at 35,000 feet, whatever. And 99 times out of 100, it's not relevant because it's commercial aircraft, 5 miles up. So to see that was, that's a first. I've never heard of that, much less had seen somebody experience that. Because that would mean, I can't remember what the FAA reg is. I want to say it's 3 miles, but don't quote me on that. If you are in close proximity to a piloted aircraft, land.
Right.
Because you will never win that argument in court or, whatever.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was a first for me. Again, it's fun for me. It's half the time I'm an insider. I'm a viewer like you guys are. So that was a surprise and an interesting one.
Yeah. So is that the only way it picks up that? It doesn't have any other means by which to know that there's a aircraft.
No.
And this was again, and I know I've mentioned this several times, folks, but the behind the gates, Travis had, I think it was Eric. Eric had mentioned that he had turned it around, and it was okay to fly going the other direction, away from the bubble. And if Eric is still here, correct me if I got that wrong, and I guess he had turned it around and he could fly away from the bubble, but when he tried to fly towards the bubble and run its pattern, it would not allow him. He had to do a manual override to get it up. Yeah.
Another interesting data point.
Yeah. Manually override it. And I don't know. Then it began this pattern. They had this pre-programmed flight pattern right here that we're seeing. So it was going to do this lawn, we call it broom or lawn mowing pattern that we're going on here, that it was going to fly. And I don't know if he ended up having to fly the whole thing manually or if he was able at some point to get it to do it, but it was able to do the pattern that they were trying to get to. Now, what this was that it was going to go into the bubble and out of the bubble and then, fly this pattern. So it would cross that boundary several times during its flight path. And you can see how it goes up and, it begins the process. But you see some, little red dots there. And those are the corrupted or missing data sets. And then you see one way up here in the top. Again, it's going, now when we mentioned this, and this was another question that I had, was that when we see the data point below ground, we said it was a delay in the time, or if it's above ground, would it be the opposite? Or would that still be considered a delay in the time? I don't know. So
it thinks it's closer to the GPS satellite than it really is.
Okay. So it's less time.
Yes.
Instead of delayed time. Okay. That's again, and we see that a lot happening. with where the dots are way above. Here's just a picture of it. He beginning it. He got it to go, and he was overriding it some way or another, and it begins its pattern. Something that Travis had said during this was that every time it crossed the boundary, it had a failure of the GPS data or corrupted data or whatever. You got the red dot every time, and there
Hey,
they are.
Jeff, I don't know whether just because it's the insiders, the image of the UI, the remote control UI, maybe
Mhm.
one or two before this one,
Yeah, I'll
just
bring it back.
because you and all the insiders do pay attention.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Mhm.
So in case anybody's wondering, what does H mean? H means home.
Ah, okay.
That's the takeoff and landing spot that the drone is aware of because of GPS. So again, because everybody pays attention, if that's hopefully that's a useful data point going forward or even
Absolutely.
going back
Mhm.
to review previous data. H means home.
Is that you often? I've seen you use it before. It's like a round piece of. I'm going to call it a pad
Yes.
that you lay
Yep.
on the ground, and that's your home point, that GPS coordinate.
Uh, actually, all
Or
it
just
is a piece of fabric to
Mhm.
keep the dust and the
The dust
crap and
out.
the grass
Mhm.
out of the drone during the rotor wash when you take off and land.
Mhm. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good information. Thank you for that, Pete. I
Mhm.
appreciate that very much. And in this case, you can see also up here that he's got 16 satellites that he's actually talking to at the time. So,
Yep.
or communicating with. Yep, that's really interesting. Here it is. Here's this. Here's the. And again, the we're going to call it the boundary line. Running all the way through here. But you see a dot here. You see dots here. You see dots here. You see dots here. Every single time it crossed the boundary, it had a failure in the data or a corrupted data in the GPS every time. And when I went back and I was talking about the fact that this boundary, this bubble does exist, I think it truly does exist. Whether it's static or dynamic, we don't know. And does it change in sizes? We don't know. But when you get repeatable data like this, and as I read that quote earlier from Eric about a pattern, you can't. How else can you dispute this? I don't know, Mike. What do you think? You can't dispute this information.
Yeah, they've definitely gotten a lot of repeatable data that shows that there's something there. And I think Eric had said to not to get too married to that shape because it could be different, and it is somewhat transient because I know they said a couple of the guys went out by themselves and tried to do some stuff and everything was fine. So of course it's Skinwalker Ranch, so nothing's going to be consistent, right? That would be too easy. If it was always there, that would be perfect. Then we could probably get somewhere, but it's not. It does seem to not like um, the busyness of everything that's going on during filming. That's for sure. But not always.
And
Yep.
my litmus test is consistently, there's this voice in my head that says, would this stand up in court?
Mm.
Right? Meaning, if I had to go up there and, make an argument, is this, would it stand up, right? In front of a jury of my peers and that kind of data? I mean, come on. Versus, well, why did it happen? Well, I know it happened. Well, why did you know? Well, I just know. Sorry, that's faith.
Yeah.
That's not going to stand up in court, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
have my faith too, and my confirmation bias and all of that. But that kind of data, to your point, repeatable, locational information that kind of stuff is gold.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just looking at the clock. Thank you, Michelle Stratton, for reminding us. We got about 24 minutes before we got to finish this up. So we'll move along. All right. So here's some of those data points that are up in the sky. It didn't know where the drone was at that particular point. And it showed it being way off a track, which we know it wasn't. And then they talked about the finding of this scat in the water or on the bank of the dry gulch creek. And they collected some of it for Ben, which would have been fun. And I think Pete, you kind of have a story about scat as well, that you shared once before. I think when you were on the show with us.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
wanna
I saw that last night and, nearly levitated out of my seat because when Bobby Valentine and I were there on the ranch in, what was it, late March, early April, just a few months ago. And then we did a podcast with you, Jeff, about this.
Mhm. Yep.
I at the time, it was, hey, there's a big pile of poop on the ground right by where we were conducting takeoff and landings, and I was commenting on the size and mass of this thing, and it was substantial. So when somebody I think in the chat during that your podcast then was, did you pick it up? Did you sample it? Did you save it? And my first thought last night was, oh, we should have. What were we thinking? Why didn't we pick that up? And then, of course, my second thought is just what in the hell is running around on this property? And yeah, that eats coyotes.
Yeah, and you found paw prints too. That at some different.
Oh,
We know Chris Bartell has found paw prints, and he's took pictures
right,
of.
right. So then, I mean, this is as spooked as I've ever been on the property. Is out there by myself, and I see those substantial canine prints in the mud that weren't there 15 minutes before, which means that whatever it was walked between me and my truck. And I ran. I literally packed up my stuff and ran back to the command center. And like, guys, there's something big out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, it all, I can't help but watching the episode as a viewer going, wow, there was that big pile of crap that we found. And then there's also the huge canine prints when I was out there by myself a few years ago. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand. And we know well somebody that pretty much lives on the ranch 24/7, and we know that he mentioned on the show about being disturbing information, interesting yet quite disturbing at the same time. Um,
Yeah.
because you guys are often, when you're doing your experiments, you're often out there at nighttime. It'd be bad enough in the day to see something like this, but how could it be lurking around at nighttime when you are doing experiments, or you're just out, you know, checking on? I mean, Thomas is out there all the time, doing the gates, opening the gates of the canal and stuff back up, and the irrigation stuff. And I mean, that's if there's a predator running around that big.
Exactly. I mean, it's literally in the last 24 hours has me thinking I need to have a chat with Prometheus about um I really would like to carry a firearm if I'm going to be out there in the middle of the night, whether I'm by myself or not. But if
Right.
there's something that kills and eats coyotes that has DNA that hasn't been seen in 10,000 years,
Yeah.
call me crazy, but we're gonna have to have this conversation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of scat, I have a couple pictures of it. The first one here was when they were talking about the fact that it had eaten a coyote and this hair. I I looked at this, and again, I go at this with knowing that we don't have all the information. We see so little of it. But I saw that hair and I'm thinking, well, maybe that was the hair on the thing's butt when it, yeah, I don't want to get too descriptive here, but again, we don't know. We don't know what all the details were that were discussed over this whole thing. But the hair was a coyote hair apparently. But then it was the bones being digested, and I would assume that maybe they got more information on that. I don't know. Mike? Did you pick up on any of that kind of?
Yeah, this is one of those cases where talking to the guys, I'm sure we'll learn that conversation was much, much, much longer,
Mhm.
and there was a lot more information that he talked about that just didn't make it into the show.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Because of the time that they have to compress everything into. So this would be a good one to get more information from them and ask if there was additional info. Um, yeah, it didn't seem like there was no real explanation on how he knew that those parts were coyote parts, and was it just the hair, or was there more analysis done?
Right. Right. Yeah. And again, that's where we are without having full information of what was discussed at the time.
And
Um,
a great
go ahead.
comment from Michelle. Poop is rich in DNA. There it is. Yeah, great
Came
catch.
from whatever dropped had eaten. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever it had eaten, not just a single hair. That's what I was getting to, Michelle. Thank you so much. You're exactly right. I assume that there was much more analysis done than what we hear about or knew about it from the show. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that very much, sir. So I thought about this and I thought, well, I'm going to look this up. Just like I think B Jones had looked it up here and was talking to us about a bear. But I looked up what would be able to digest bone. Um, and so, say some of the things that came up on the list were bearded vultures, hyenas, wolverines. And here's one that blew my mind: camels and giraffes. I, I didn't know they would eat bones, but apparently their stomachs can digest them. A wildebeest, antelopes, tortoises, grizzly bears. So there are some animals that can, and I think B. Jones had put one up that in northern Utah there was a bear type, or I don't know if it was a grizzly. If you had mentioned that,
There's black bear.
a black bear,
Yep.
but not supposed to be around skinwalker eagles too. Okay, yep, there you go. Those were just some of them that popped up. Black bear, yeah. So there are animals that can, but not supposed to be. Oh, Sasquatch. Yeah, don't forget about Sasquatch. I mean, geez, Bigfoot. I mean, he can eat anything, right? Maybe that pile you saw. Uh, yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Hey, we're all adults here, right? Um,
Yeah.
I've been thinking that, the list of critters that just went by, both uh, you talking about them and in the chat. I'm no biologist, but I do remember from biology 300 years ago that, what am I trying to say? There's a pattern for critters, and they're all apex predators
Mhm.
who eat and can digest bones, reptiles, and big ones, Komodo
Yeah,
dragons, alligators, crocodiles. And the common denominator is these are apex predators who can't chew,
right.
right? So the apex predators who can chew, you just went through the most powerful jaws there are: hyenas, jaguars, yada yada yada. But no matter what it is, it's makes me feel like Jaws. It's like we're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. But and again, as they had stated on the show, Ben Woodruff made this very clear that some of these animals that would kill a coyote, but would it eat the coyote? Chances are no. So yeah, I mean, it would have to be very hungry, but it might kill like some animals might kill one just because it was territorial or whatever it was in there, and so it would
Sure.
kill it. But eat it is a whole nother question. B. Jones, thank you very much. Always great to have Eric and Pete join in to add richness to the show. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Pete Jones. I am always very, very happy to have any of the guys from the ranch come on. Caleb joined us before too, and that was great. And Thomas said he would, and he's been so busy. Thomas has been so busy lately that hopefully we'll get Thomas to come on. But yeah, it adds so much to have you guys come and join us. That's priceless, quite priceless. In that area too, and this was one quick slide I'll show here to talk about this also, but Travis was talking about in that area that you see him pointing out on the map there. They had this is the area where they experienced many different things, like the burnt fence post was in this area that was burnt without a fire affecting anything else around the area there by the fence post, if you remember that. There was that UAP, that orb, their silver orb that showed up in the field on that one shot from the game trail cam that was put up, that Bryant and Caleb had found. Gosh, there was several things. Oh, the purple, I think it was, oh no, it was a blue orb that seemed to be following uh, Thomas when he was going out in the field looking for it, and it was seemed to be following him. It was all in that same area out there, in that same general area, and that's what Travis was pointing out here, that those particular things happened in that spot. So pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, the scat didn't look wet. No, it didn't look like it had been there for a bit of a time. Oh, there it is there again. Yeah, great. All right. A wonderful episode. We've got so much information. I know that we were talking about this before, about the fact that what all are we going to be able to talk about tonight. There was so much different stuff going on. And that I'm really glad about talking about the drones there for a moment too, simply because of that aircraft, talking about that aircraft. That's the one thing that really just boggles my brain, how it would think that there's an aircraft in the area when it's using the ADSB, and yet ADSB is not showing any aircraft in the area. So where are you getting your information from? Some other source is coming to you. That kind of scares me a little bit too, because ADSB is something that's relied upon so heavily.
It's important.
Yeah,
It's very
that's
important. And if it can
Yep.
be spoofed,
yeah. If ADSB can be spoofed, my days of commercial air travel are over.
oh yeah, yes, yes, they are.
Literally.
Yeah, that scares me to no end. If that can happen, for sure. And that's why I'm kind of hanging on that a little bit, just simply because of that particular thing. Something that Travis had said also was, does the bubble create mutations? That would, because they're talking about this bubble area and the possibility that things can pass in and out of our world or our time or our area, if that sort of thing. Again, this is all speculation, but if it can do mutations, that makes me fear for all of you guys out there working on this ranch all the time. I mean, that's just bothersome in many ways. One other quote that I wanted to mention too, that Eric had said, and I love this so much because I fall into this category, but caught red-handed in the act of learning. I know he said that on the Insider program before. He said it on the show. last night, but caught red-handed in the act of learning. I just love that. That's fantastic. Next time on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, we've got some stuff. Jim Royston is trying to what appears now. This could be the beauty of editing for Prometheus to get us to watch next week's show. But apparently, there was a point where Jim was trying to cross over the boundary into the bubble area, and it would not let him. The drone would not cross the boundary, at least for a time, or something going on there. I don't know. Were you privy to that one at all, Pete? Or you can talk about? I know I put you on the spot there. Sorry.
We'll talk again.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right. One thing they do show the guys in the drilling at the Mesa. They get going with what I'm assuming is the second borehole going up into the Mesa. That's really good
Are you
information.
going to share that picture?
Well, yeah. I was thinking about not sharing it, but here it is. So there you see them working it there, and then, but it looks almost like the first one. And I love how they created the little mini Stonehenge here out of the rocks that they were picking up with that crane net one day. I love that. I made a pile here. I was trying to make one in our yard, but I got ruled out. I wasn't allowed to make a mini Stonehenge here with all the big stones we have. And then we see the spoils. This gentleman here, and I don't know who he is just yet, but he calls the guys over to the table to look at the interesting spoils that they have from the drill going and doing its thing. And that's going to be interesting information. And then Jim with his drone that would not cross the boundary. And I think that was a shot of it again.
A lot of errors again.
Lots of errors again. Yeah. Remote ID broadcast error, failed to obtain remote controller location.
Yeah. So remote ID, a few years ago, the FAA made a requirement to all drone manufacturers worldwide that you will broadcast your location so that it can be picked up on ADSB, or you will go to prison.
Oh.
So the birds that Jim and I and everyone else fly on the property, we all have remote ID because we're required to by law. So, but another interesting data point that, hey, remote ID is down. That's right up there with ADSB is not working. It's disturbing, to say the least.
So is something blocking these signals? Is something manipulating them? Is it, and that whole thing that Eric was talking about last week, where he looked like his data was being hacked. More to come on that, by the way. That'll be interesting to see what happens there. But he's getting the data manipulation back at him. And that's not cool either. More to come on that, and more to come on all this stuff. This was another fantastic show. Mike, I don't know what it just keeps
with a lot of good stuff, a lot of good science, a lot of good repeatability. Like I said, they're really packing a lot into this season. Already there's been a lot to talk about. So good show.
And more to come. All right. Pete, what do you think?
Oh, season 6, buckle up.
Buckle up. Yeah.
Well, and not to belabor the point, but if New York Magazine, with huge readership and circulation, leans in and gives a bit of a no holds barred, take on this project, to me, that's a great indicator, right? That's this isn't fringe. This is noteworthy on a very large scale. So it's, for me, selfishly, that feels good. And I hope the rest of the insiders and you guys feel the same way because it's,
Absolutely.
yeah, call us crazy, but
I couldn't, even with all the weird stuff happening out there at the ranch, I don't think that unless a medical issue happened to me, which has happened to Travis and to Thomas, and then you've seen the guys that had to get put into the silo, the Faraday cage that's out there. Unless those things happen to me, I don't think you could keep me away from it. Because you guys are applying the scientific method and going through this, trying to figure out what's happening out there. And I applaud you for continuing to go back over and over again. You're white whale, right? So
white whale. And
white
for
whale.
you and everybody else, keeping everybody honest on the straight and narrow. There are millions of people watching and watching really closely. It's just great.
Mhm. It's great science and great, information. All right, folks, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. And as I said earlier, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like the content of the show we did here for you tonight, consider giving us a like. Give us a thumbs up for that. We really appreciate it. Pete Kelsey, we got to go. I know you got stuff 3 minutes. We got to get out of here. So thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time right here on the Freeman Files on the J Free 906 podcast. Good night.